The Daniel Penny trial. Is he Subway's hero or is he a Subway killer? We're going to talk about that as part two of the episode that we just released this weekend. And James and I are going to talk tonight about that episode. Glad to have you on board the Charlie Crime Train.
The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the individuals interviewed or participating and do not represent those of Charlie Crimebuster nor Peacemaker Network. All individuals described or mentioned in the presentation should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law. This presentation contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
James, tell those folks where they can find us on social media as we get started.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. Yeah, they can reach out to us if they want to email us or even have a comment or they have a question or they even disagree with us on any topic. They're more than welcome to reach out to us at charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. We call it a reach out with a shout out. Or you can text us anytime, 407-917-2211, 407-917-2211. And you can also visit us at pacemakernetwork.com, and there you can become a supporter of our podcast and the men and women, first responders, law enforcement, and military by becoming a badge member. That's BADGE member for as little as $3 a month. Again, that's peacemakernetwork.com. And if you're a true crime junkie and would like to binge-cast, you can also listen to some of our previous podcasts on our website, charliecrimebuster.com. That's charliecrimebuster.com. You can also visit our Facebook or Meta Facebook page and give us a like. That's facebook.com/charliecrimebuster. And you can also watch these episodes and listen to these episodes on TikTok now. That's at tiktok.com/charliecrimebuster.
There we go. Hey, there's a lot of ways folks can get in touch with us there. And also, I hope that if you're listening tonight, or you're listening to this program right now, you be sure and hit that button there that says subscribe. That way, they'll be informed right when these episodes are dropped. Correct?
That's right. That's right. If you're listening or watching us on YouTube, you can hit the subscribe button, and we thank you for that.
We certainly do, James. And by the way, I guess we ought to say a thank you to those folks out there that may have said a little prayer for us down here in Florida, because that hurricane that we thought was headed our way just kind of tucked its tail, went the other way, and so we're happy about that, right?
Yes, we are. Yes, we
I
are.
think two hurricanes in one season is enough, don't you think?
I think that's plenty.
Yeah, that's plenty.
Plenty.
So thank you, folks, who are remembering us down here on this little peninsula called Florida. And of course, we still remember those folks up in North Carolina, Tennessee, and those areas that were hit so hard by the first one that came through and just kept on going right up the United States, you know?
Yeah, Helene. Yeah.
Yeah, Helene.
Did a lot of damage.
Helene and Milton.
Yeah.
Well, we love to have guests here in Florida. We love to have tourists. We appreciate those that come down, but I just don't think that Helene and Milton are very welcome here anymore.
No. And hopefully they'll never have storms named after them ever again.
There you go. But speaking of a storm, it's kind of amazing this week, James. We just heard today, of course, of that terrible tragedy where that young lady was murdered in there at the college. And if you recall, this guy who did it was someone who was here as a illegal immigrant, and he murdered this young lady, and the judge pronounced guilty.
Good.
And he was actually sentenced to life without parole, which is certainly a good thing. So here you have a real, no doubt about it. The judge ruled right away. The evidence was very clear. This was a guy who stalked her, who was going out hunting that night, who murdered her and killed her. And then on the whole other end of the spectrum, now we got a guy who actually came to basically rescue and defend other people, and now he's on trial for murder.
I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
What a contrast there,
That is. Yeah, Charlie summarized the incident that has turned now into a court case.
Sure. Well, on May the 1st of 23, there was Jordan Neely. He was a homeless man. He got on the subway, and he died after this guy by the name of Daniel Penny, who was a Marine, 24 years of age at the time, and he had come and put him in a chokehold. Now, when he got on that subway, he got on it there at the Second Avenue station. Before he screamed at people and he was threatening them, said, "I'm not afraid to go to prison. Somebody's going to die." And something I found out just today, James, that I think really it impacted me because I did not realize it. You know, in the first episode, we talked about how the subway has this history of violence.
Mm-hmm.
But did you know that last year alone in New York City subways, there were 20 people pushed onto the tracks
Pushed on.
by by mental people just like this guy that we're talking about today that
Well, no
pushed him
wonder.
on the tracks, you know.
No
So
wonder they're
that's
afraid for their lives.
20 people, and that's just last year because you know they're certainly not the type of crime that was here in the 70s or 80s, but there's still a whole lot of crime and a whole lot of violence on that subway.
Right.
So in this background, Neely, a trained Marine who's now a student who is studying engineering, he saw that he felt that these people's lives were in danger, and we have all kinds of testimonies that that happened. And he comes and puts him in a chokehold, and then, of course, Neely dies afterward, and now he's on trial for murder. And so far, the prosecution has rested their case. The defense now is putting on their side of the story.
Hmm.
Today was a dark day. The court did not have court today, but they'll pick it back up again tomorrow.
Wow. Well, did the police arrest Penny on the spot?
Well, you know, that's the thing that I certainly want to make a point as we talk tonight. They did not arrest him on the spot. They did, of course, interview him. And in fact, I was just watching the interview before the episode because that was played in court. And as the police were interrogating him and talking to him and this sort of thing, it appeared to me that as far as law enforcement was concerned, particularly at the very beginning of this, they had no real intention of bringing charges against him. That they were going along with the self-defense. But the person who really pushed this was the district attorney, who was a very liberal district attorney, by
Mm,
the way, who got beat in election. So hopefully that this will change because a lot of people in New York City are just fed up with the way that some of these prosecutors have seemingly bent over backwards to protect the criminal and have not done a whole lot to protect the citizens.
wow.
You know, they're putting people back on the street that have no business being back on the street. They're
Mm-mm.
putting dangerous people out there. You know,
Wow.
the same thing when you get back to this situation with this guy that we just heard about today, who murdered this college student who was out jogging. He too had been in trouble with the law, but in a lot of these places, they're just slapping these criminals on the wrist and letting them go. That a good example is Neely. He's been arrested 42 times. 42 times this
Wow.
man had been arrested. So, getting
Um,
back to your question, they did not arrest him. In fact, when they were interviewing him, and I thought this was amazing, I didn't realize this, but when they were interviewing Daniel Penny, Penny did not know that Neely had died. He had no knowledge that Neely had died. He had thought that he had just put him in that chokehold, which is a sleeper hold, you know,
right.
that would cause people to be unconscious.
Right.
When they were there at the train, the police had said that they found a pulse, a faint pulse,
Right.
and Penny thought that he was still alive. So, you know, the police did not arrest him, but it's this DA that brought on these charges, and so that's why we're where we are today, which I believe is just a bunch of crap because I don't think we should be here. I don't think that Neely should have been
No.
arrested in the first place, you know.
No. Well,
And
Charlie, are
then there are people who come back and say, well, then they took it to the grand jury and the grand jury convicted him. Well, guess what? You know, the grand jury will convict a ham sandwich, as we say, you
yeah.
know, because all they hear is the prosecution side.
Exactly.
Prosecution can say anything they want to say.
Right.
Very easy to get a conviction of the grand jury. So the fact that the grand jury indicted does not, to in my mind, say anything about the real substance of this case.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, Are there other factors that you think that make Penny a hero in this case and maybe not a killer?
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot of stuff out there. I mean,
Hmm.
I almost think that I could present this case to the jury myself and and get a get a not guilty thing. But there are several things. First of all, it's just not one, and it's amazing to me. A lot of the witnesses the prosecution brought in last week, actually, to me, tended to be more of a witness for Penny
The
than they
defense.
did Neely,
Yeah, yeah.
because not one witness, but witness after witness, several of them, many of them said they were in fear of their lives while this guy was on the train. That they really were scared. They really felt that. And remember, the factor here is if you feel that your life is in danger of severe injury or death, you have a right to defend yourself.
Right.
And these folks definitely were in fear of their life. The second thing was, I think we have to understand that Penny, when he put this man in a chokehold, he was doing what he had been trained as a Marine, you know.
Right. Right.
And I don't know if you recall or not, but I certainly remember being taught this in my police training in the academy, and I remember hearing it in other places. Have you heard the Good Samaritan law? You know,
Yes. Yes.
whereas like if you're out there and somebody's in danger and you get in and try to assist,
Assist.
then even though you haven't been trained like a doctor or something like this, the Good Samaritan law would protect you.
Exactly.
Well, in my thinking, that the same thing should be true here with Neely. You know,
Right.
there was no intentions to kill this man. There was no intentions to. All he wanted to do was just to keep him from being a threat to other people on the train.
Exactly.
Now, he may not have done that chokehold just exactly right. He may have been in error in something that he did. I'm not saying he did or he didn't, but even if he did, his intent was to save other people, just like a good Samaritan's intent is to save somebody's life. So
Right.
I think that's the reason. Another thing is that Neely himself. I mean, he incriminated himself. He screamed, and people have testified. He said, "Somebody is going to die, and I don't care if I go to prison for the rest of my life." Now, you have a wild man coming at me saying that he's not afraid to go to prison for the rest of his life, and somebody's going to die. I take that as a personal threat to my life.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
believe these folks' lives were really threatened. And another thing is Neely. Another reason why I think that would support him as a hero is that while he had him in that chokehold, Neely was continuing to resist. And in my work as a police officer, when we had to wrestle and deal with these type of people, we would keep saying, "Stop! Stop resisting! Stop
Right.
resisting!"
Right.
As long as there's resistance, you've got to bring some sort of pressure.
Right.
And he was resisting for a good number of the time, so he was holding on because of the fact that he was resisting. I think that's something else. And I think, of course, the big thing is with these charges, according to recent police commissioner that I was listening to, the two things that have to happen for these charges to get a guilty fee is number one, there has to be intent. Did he intend to kill him? I
Right.
don't think anybody
I don't
thinks
think
he
he did
intended to
either.
kill him.
No.
Secondly, it has to be negligence. It has to be reckless. I don't think he was, reckless in this. I think he was trying to do the best he could to subdue him.
He was actually
So,
properly trained,
yeah,
so he
yeah,
knew what he was doing.
I think the evidence is overwhelming that he should be not guilty in this. But you never know what a jury will say. The
That's true,
bottom
Charlie.
line is, if you fear for your life, according to the law, you can do whatever force necessary, including deadly force, to protect yourself.
Protect
And there
yourself.
were people on that train that feared for their life.
Well, tell us more about Neely. You wanted to be fair in your treatment of him, so you said several things about him.
Yeah, yeah, and I do. This is sad. I mean, I'm certainly an advocate for Daniel Penny. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I'm just coming down strong on that. But at the same time, that doesn't mean I'm happy about what happened, and nobody should be happy
No,
about what happened. It's
no.
terrible when somebody loses their life. And
Exactly.
this was a guy who did have a very tough life. He was 30 years of age at this point. Jordan Maurice Kane Neely. He was born there in New Jersey. In fact, at the in his early life, in 20s and his teenage life, he was really well known as a talented dancer, and he was locally known as a Michael Jackson impersonator. So people, were very fond of him, and he would perform Times Square on subways and this sort of thing. And that's very amazing because he had such a tough life. When he was 14 years of age, and I get this, his mother was murdered
Hmm.
by one of her boyfriends, and not only murdered, but she was literally left on the side of the road in a suitcase. And
Oh,
for a
wow.
14-year-old kid to experience something like that, not only did he know about that happening, but he actually went to court to testify. It had to have an impact upon him. And a lot of people said that was the big turning point in his life when he became extremely depressed. And then, of course, he got involved in depression, and then he got involved in drugs. As we know, he was pretty highly drugged when he was on this crazed situation he was there. So this is a sad story. There's no doubt about it. But even though you have tough times like he's had, and even though you may have a mental problem, and certainly we have to deal with mental people, and we have to care for mental people, we still have to remember that they can be dangerous, right?
That's true.
There's a big thing today, and there's no doubt about it that we need to do something in this country to take care of the mentally ill better than what we're doing. I mean,
Hmm.
that's that.
Hmm.
Right now they're basically on the street, or they end up in jail and back on the street, and jail and back on the street, and it's just not working. One of the things that they're saying is they think that in such cases like this, that rather than police being dispatched, they ought to actually dispatch counselors. Well, they say for every good idea, that there's a stupid one, and that's a very stupid one. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, can you imagine a
Yeah.
counselor being there in this situation? Then the counselor would be in danger too. Now, I think I can see having counselors with the police there,
Yes.
but certainly not just sending counselors on their own to handle things like this, because
No.
they are, just like a police officer may not be totally trained in how to deal with some of the mental problems and challenges people have. There is no way that a counselor is trained to handle the violence that police officers have to handle,
That's true. That's true.
So you have to have protection there, and you have to have force. If you don't have protection and force, then you're not going to help the mentally ill, nor are you going to help the people that the mentally ill may be preying upon.
Right.
So just wanted to bring that out. That I think we have to realize that just because somebody's going through a mental episode doesn't mean that they're not dangerous. But
That's
hey,
true.
let's lighten it up a little bit, right?
Yeah, let's lighten it up. Tell us about the crazy crook story for this week.
Well, probably and I probably shouldn't say this, but I guess I will anyhow. Uh, as a police officer, there's probably no other time that you get more jacked up out there than maybe in a police pursuit.
Hmm.
I mean, you've heard this, of course, happening. That sometimes people are saying that's why there might be a little more than necessary force used when they finally run this person down.
You got adrenaline
And
going, you know?
you have that adrenaline shot. That's right,
Yeah.
exactly. You
Yeah.
have I mean, I've been there, man. You're chasing this guy at high speeds down the road, and you're in all kinds of danger. Yeah,
Hmm.
you're putting other people in danger who they're coming in contact with. You're putting yourself in danger.
Hmm. Hmm.
But at the same time, I mean, you can't just say, hey, that we never pursue these people, because if you do that, everybody's going to be running all the time, you
Exactly.
know?
Hmm.
And so, today pursuit policies basically are, I think, pretty well thought out. I know as a chief deputy, when I was on the street, we were allowed to pursue people. We did pursue people, but there were some there was some rules that you had. Number one, if it wasn't a serious situation, then you certainly wouldn't pursue this person when there's heavy traffic or when
Right.
other people are out there on the street of danger.
Right.
But on the other hand, if it's if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and not much traffic out there, and you try to pull somebody over and they're not they're not pulling over, then you should pursue them. You never know. I mean, a lot of times you got to realize that sometimes, most of the time, there's a reason people are running. You know,
Right. Absolutely.
one pursuit I got involved in, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, found out the guy had just escaped prison. He was very dangerous, very violent guy. Now, if I had not pursued him, if we had not finally caught him, then what if I'd had a chance to do that and I didn't? He went out and murdered somebody. Then it's
Ex-
back on me. You know what I'm
exactly.
saying? So
Exactly.
there's a lot of it's a complex situation when you talk about pursuing people. But there was something out there that, in fact, I on one of my bucket lists is to finish a book I've been working on, and it's basically entitled "Awaken the Guardian Angel in You," and what I want to talk about is something that we call in law enforcement and a lot of military too called spidey senses.
Right.
Spidey
Yep.
senses
Yep.
that you just sense that something's going on.
Yep.
And I can't tell you how many times out there now. Is this some magic? I don't think it's magic. I think actually what it probably is the fact that our unconscious part of us, we know a lot of things that we see, and maybe we may not even realize it, but it kind of tells us something's going on.
Right. Right.
And so, spotty senses, many times when I would make a traffic stop, those senses would go off, and I would almost predict you who's going to run and who's not. Well, our crazy crook today, James, you wouldn't have to have spotty senses because this guy was in a Mustang. He took the police, the highway patrol on a pursuit and on the interstate, speeds of over 100 mile per hour.
Mm,
And as sad as these things often are, it ended up with him wrecking and he ended up hitting an SUV with a family inside of it.
mm.
Thankfully, the family was not harmed seriously. But the crazy part about it is, you know these personalized tags that you have on your vehicle?
Uh-huh.
Guess
They're
what was
called
on this crazy guy's
they're
tag?
they're called vanity plates.
Vanity plates, right?
Yeah.
Well, his vanity plate said, "Will run."
Will run.
Yeah, will run. Now,
How
now,
predictable.
yeah. What better way to telegraph to a police officer if you're about to really pull him over that you're going to run than to have a vanity tag that says "will run"?
Uh-huh.
If I'm behind that car and I'm getting ready to make a traffic stop, I've already radioed people ahead of time to get out the sticks.
Uh-huh.
I've already
Uh-huh.
radioed and said, "Hey, get the helicopter up." I've already prepared for this pursuit. And so this crazy idiot, and he's crazy because he ran from the police because that never works out. I often said you might outrun me, but you won't outrun the police radio. Number two, it endangers other people's lives, so that's crazy to do it. But number three, he was so crazy he even telegraphed it on his tag. So that was our crazy crook of the week.
I'd be curious to know what came up on the Davy system in the in the cop car when they ran his plate.
Isn't that the truth? I bet he's been in trouble before.
Uh,
What do you bet?
wow, wow.
Yeah.
Well, and back to our story about Daniel Penny and Neely. You mentioned something that stood out at the funeral that happened, funeral of Neely. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, his funeral was held in Harlem. It was on May the 10th, I believe it was. Yeah, May the 10th.
Hmm.
There were over 200 people who attended, and that's a lot of people to attend for a homeless person.
That's true.
So certainly we know that this story had legs on it. We know that it caught a lot of attention, a lot of people. But the interesting thing was that there was a whole lot of politicians that showed up. And just about any time you have politicians showing up, usually, the press is going to get involved, and then the pressure is on for that to proceed into a trial. And that's
Yep.
another reason why I believe that we're in trial today is because of the media and the press, but I don't really blame the press or the media. But what I do say is that when the politicians get involved, you have to just sit back and think, are these guys really concerned for the homeless? Do they like the spotlight?
Uh-huh.
Because I
Uh-huh.
mean, if they were concerned for the homeless, there's a whole lot of things they could have done maybe to prevent this from happening.
Absolutely.
Maybe they could get
Absolutely.
in and we get their mind together and let's fix what's happening
Mm-hmm.
to these homeless people and the mental stuff. But boy, they showed up at the funeral, and of course you had Al Sharpton. I always say, oh Al, he's never seen a camera that he did not like. I mean he comes there, so you bring all this publicity in, and
Uh-huh.
then you got this twist on it that they're trying to make it at that point, in my mind, they're trying to make it about race. And there's just no way I believe that this was about race at all. As I said in the podcast, Daniel Neely did not get up there and try to rescue these people and excuse me, not Daniel Neely, but Neely was there. Of course, we know he was homeless. He was black. I will agree on all that. But Penny was not there because he was a racist. He was there because he was a Marine.
He was there
And
protecting people of all colors.
yeah, and Marines, I mean, boy, I admire Marines. I
Me
mean, you
too.
tell me a guy has been in the Marine Corps, he has my respect because
Absolutely.
those guys are there because they want to serve. They're there because they want to protect.
That's right.
They go through just some really awesome training. And he was a Marine, and I've heard it said again and again and again, and I can kind of identify with this because I have the saying, once a cop, always a cop. Well, it's certainly true that once a Marine, always a Marine.
Mm-hmm.
And so the funeral to me gave me a kind of a look into why this is happening today. And that is simply because they've turned this into a racist situation when I don't think it's a racist situation. I think it's a situation where we need to look at the facts. There were people on that train who feared for their life, and he came and he did what he could to protect those people.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So the
I certainly
funeral,
do.
I think, gave us you know, uh, kind of a look into what was going to happen here. I
Uh-huh.
think that when the politicians got involved and when they tried to turn it into a race situation, then that's why we're here today, and this is a court situation that the nation is watching.
And the media didn't help.
Yep, right, yeah.
Well, tell us about the star witness for the prosecution.
Well, as we know, the prosecution rested their case.
Yeah.
Dr. Cynthia Harris, who is the medical director there, she actually testified that when he was released from that chokehold, she said that he was already brain dead. She said she found multiple signs of trauma, hemorrhaging in his neck, chest, spleen, and she said all that was a result of him being placed in that chokehold. Now, the defense came back and said, well, this is interesting that you're saying all this because there was a time when you were not ruling that this was a homicide. There was a time when you said it was undetermined. Well,
Uh-huh.
then she comes back and says, well, that's because I had heard people say that after he was out of the chokehold, he was screaming, and if he was out of the chokehold and he's screaming, then maybe I wasn't right on this, but that didn't happen. She said she's totally convinced that he died as a result of this chokehold. Now, uh, my point on all this is even if the chokehold caused his death, the real person at fault here is Neely. He's the one that started this. If he
Yep.
had not got on the subway and said, "I'm going to kill people, somebody's going to die, and I don't care if I go to prison the rest of my life," if he had not threatened people's lives and terrified them, then Penny would have not come to the rescue. So, you know, even if the medical examiner says he died as a result of the chokehold, I don't think that changes the facts of the case.
No.
Facts of the case, he acted in self-defense.
Well, what do you think we can expect from the defense?
Well, as I said today, it was dark. They did not. We're recording this on Wednesday, by the way, And today there was not anybody in the court. They took a day off. Tomorrow they came back. So far it looks like what the defense is doing is basically bringing a whole bunch of good character witnesses to the stand. His
Hmm.
mother has already been on the stand. A fellow Marine was already on the stand, and these people are singing the praises of Penny, and they're talking about what a good man he is. He got some humanitarian award for helping people during some sort of relief project. He seems to be the kind of guy that's going around doing good,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so on the other hand, you got this other guy who's been arrested 42 times.
Right.
So I think what the defense is going to say, okay, here's your guy that the prosecution is lifting up, and here's our guy, and you can see there's totally difference in the character. And if there's that much difference in the character, then how could you think that this man would have wanted to kill this guy? There was no intent there at all to kill him.
Hmm.
They were simply They were simply trying to do. He was simply trying to come to the defense of these people who were afraid.
Yeah. So what about those people that say that this was a mental health case and should have been handled as such? What do you think about that?
Well, I think we pretty well covered that, but I do think again that if any good could come from this case, and this has happened over and over again, and still we haven't had a lot of good come from the case. But what could happen is maybe we could all take a step back, and those in authority say, how can we betterly serve the mentally ill?
Right.
Because putting mentally ill people out in the public on subway trains who've already had 42 arrests, who've already assaulted three women. Three women were literally physically assaulted by this man. And just to say this guy's got a mental problem, let's put him right back on the street, that's not doing the job. That's just not doing the job. And I think that we have to rethink that. And I think we need to do something about it. Now, I think with this new DA that's been elected there in New York, I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see turn. And what's happening in the nation today?
Hmm.
I think we're going to see a real. I'm hoping and praying that there's a real turnaround on law and order in this country, because these idea that that people can go into these businesses across the country, steal anything they want to, and walk out without being stopped,
Hmm.
that they can go up and steal up to $1,000, and even if they're caught, they go back to the court. The court lets them walk right out without any bond or anything like that.
Yep.
That's just not working.
No.
We have this guy that was involved in this terrible murder of this college student. They found ties to a gang. There are gangs working in this country today that we're just not really cracking down on. So I'm hoping that with this new DA and what's happening in the country today, that we're going to have a stronger case of law and order, and that we get tough with criminals. We need to get tough with criminals. That's our problem right now.
If you're arrested
Eh,
42 times, isn't that considered a repeat offender?
Well, you think? If it's not, how many times would it be? Is it a
Exactly.
hundred? It's just incredible to me. What's incredible to me is we're even talking about this. I mean,
Exactly.
why would this even be considered a case?
Right.
I
Right.
mean, it just blows my mind. But that's the way it is. But so we're going to see. I think maybe by the end of the week, this thing might be wrapped up and it go to the jury, and then we're going to see what's going to happen. What do you think? Yeah, how long you think the jury will be deliberating with this?
Not very long. This is a pretty open and shut case, in my opinion. I don't think there's going to be much. There's so much, in my opinion, there's so much in favor of Daniel Penny with regard to the character witnesses and also the witnesses at the scene that were in fear of their life and spoke
Yeah,
highly of the way that he handled the situation and prevented them from feeling, you know, at risk or in fear of their death.
yeah.
So,
But think about what could have happened if he did not act.
that's
They could be
that's the
they
other
could be
factor.
somebody
Yeah,
else dead at this point. And
exactly.
that person would be a totally innocent person who didn't deserve to die. And so, while nobody deserves to die in this situation, certainly it would be terrible if my loved one was on that train. As we said last week, I would be thanking God for somebody like Penny on that train if I had a
Absolutely.
loved one on that train.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and that's what the former one of the former police inspectors in the city of New York. I heard him being interviewed, and he said this man is a hero. He's not a criminal. He
No,
shouldn't be charged.
exactly.
He's a hero. And unfortunately, the reason why we don't have any heroes anymore is nobody will let him be a hero.
Exactly. Exactly.
We've gotten to that point. So let's just hope that this thing turns around. So anyway, that kind of wraps us up tonight. Remind the folks, if you would, James, of where they can find the other episodes. Give them one more round of how they can get a hold of us, and then
All
we'll get
right.
out of here.
All right. You can binge cast at charliecrimebuster.com. That's charliecrimebuster.com. There we have not only this episode, but also others. And also here on YouTube, do we have not only the shows from charliecrimebuster.com, but also these crime talk shows that we have every Wednesday. So you can listen to them here as well. And then you can go to tiktok.com/charliecrimebuster or facebook.com/charliecrimebuster. And there we keep you up to date on everything that's going on. And if you subscribe to this channel, every time we drop a show, you'll be notified.
Yep, there you go. By the way, one other thing happened today, James, before we get out of here, is that shows us that maybe it's not all doom for the criminal justice department. There was a lady that several years ago put her two children in the back seat of a car and let them drown.
Mm-hmm.
She came up for parole today before the parole board, and unanimously, the after she spent 30 years in prison, the parole board said, "Nope, nope, you're not going free." So that's
There you
the
go.
kind of people that we need in the justice system today that will be hard on crime. So until this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, stay safe, stay alert. Yep, for the life you save, it could be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. You can find additional podcasts at charliecrimebuster.com. You can also support our first responders, military, and law enforcement communities at peacemakernetwork.com or subscribe to our YouTube channel using tag @charliecrimebuster. Even visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/charliecrimebuster. Or if you would like to make suggestions for future podcasts, please send your ideas to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you will join us next week for another exciting crime story with Charlie Crimebuster.